put his ass where he supposed to be. He tried me.
That's the old Gucci still there?
The man got some, are they murder charges or attempted murder charges?
Murder charges.
Murder charges, straight up.
We, the jury, in the above entitled action, find the defendant, Robert Blake, not guilty of the crime of first-degree murder.
We, the jury, in the above entitled action, find the defendant, Orenthal James Simpson, not guilty of the crime of murder.
Matthew Broderick killed 2 people and paid $175. DaBaby walked free after surveillance footage proved his self-defense claim to be false. O.J. Simpson walked free after the same murder gloves he used to unalive his wife didn't fit his hands in court. And once you see who's on this list, you'll realize, if you're famous enough, even murder might not matter. O.J. Simpson. The glove didn't fit, but the evidence was overwhelming. On October 3, 1995, the world watched in stunned silence as the verdict was read.
We, the jury, in the above entitled action, find the defendant, Orenthal James Simpson, not guilty of the crime of murder in violation of Penal Code Section 187A, a felony upon Nicole Brown Simpson, a human being, as charged in count 1 of the information.
But here's what makes this case so infuriating: the mountain of evidence that should have sealed his fate. Picture this: you're a former NFL superstar, beloved by millions, with everything to lose. Your ex-wife has been receiving death threats, there's a documented history of domestic violence, and suddenly she's found brutally attacked outside her home, along with an innocent waiter who was simply returning her mother's sunglasses. The most shocking moment of the trial came when prosecutor Christopher Darden made a fatal decision.
Your Honor, at this time, the people would ask that Mr. Simpson step forward and try on the glove recovered at Bundy as well as the glove recovered at Rockingham.
But here's where the story gets really disturbing. Simpson's defense team, led by Johnny Cochran, effectively used the racial climate in Los Angeles to their advantage, exploiting the community's distrust of the LAPD following incidents like the Rodney King beating. They turned what should have been a straightforward murder trial into a referendum on police racism. The evidence against Simpson was staggering. DNA evidence linked him to the crime scene, blood traces were found in his car and on his socks, and there was no solid alibi for the time of the murders. But when that glove demonstration went wrong, everything changed. The defense's famous phrase became the turning point.
It doesn't fit. If it doesn't fit, you must acquit. Good time, Your Honor.
What the jury didn't fully grasp was that the gloves had shrunk from being soaked in blood, and Simpson was wearing latex gloves underneath. It was a moment of courtroom theater that may have cost 2 families their justice. The most shocking part? Later statements from jurors revealed that some viewed their decision as payback for the Rodney King case. Carrie Bess, one of the jurors, later admitted that 90% of the jury actually decided to acquit Simpson as payback for Rodney King. Detective Mark Furman's credibility was systematically destroyed when the defense revealed recordings of him using racial slurs.
And you say on your oath that you have not addressed any black person as a nigger or spoken about black people as niggers in the past 10 years, Detective Furman.
That's what I'm saying, sir.
The most damaging moment came when he was asked directly about planting evidence.
Detective Furman, did you plant or manufacture any evidence in this case?
I assert my Fifth Amendment privilege.
The financial disparity was equally disturbing. Simpson's wealth enabled him to afford the dream team of lawyers, while the prosecution relied on overworked public servants. Perhaps most telling of all, Simpson was later found liable in a 1997 civil trial where the burden of proof was lower and ordered to pay $33,500,000 in damages. The same evidence that couldn't convict him criminally was enough to hold him financially responsible. Robert Blake.
We, the jury, in the above entitled action, find the defendant, Robert Blake, not guilty of the crime of first-degree murder.
Long before he became known as a suspected killer, Robert Blake was America's tough guy actor, famous for playing the street-smart detective Tony Beretta. But on May 4, 2001, Blake's life took a dark turn that would forever change how we view celebrity justice. Blake's wife, Bonnie Lee Bakley, was found shot dead in his car outside an Italian restaurant, and Blake's story about what happened that night was so bizarre it seemed almost scripted for Hollywood. He claimed he had returned to the restaurant to retrieve a firearm that had fallen out of his clothing, leaving Bakley alone in the car. When he came back, he found her slumped over, fatally wounded. The moment Blake heard his verdict was shocking to watch. But years later, Blake's bitterness about the case was still evident.
This day I hate him. I'm still here. You bastards. I'm still here. I didn't die in that box. You got it? I'm still here. I'm 85 years old. I'm beat up all the hell and gone, but I'm still here. And you're still pounding the beat. Smoke that.
Blake was charged with murder, but his case revealed the ugly underbelly of how celebrity defendants can manipulate the system. The prosecution's case relied heavily on the testimony of two retired stuntmen who claimed Blake had offered to pay them to kill Bakley. The stuntmen's stories were shocking. They testified that Blake was desperate to escape his marriage to Bakley, a woman with a history of marrying older men for their money. Gary McClarty and Ronald Duffy Hambleton claimed Blake had approached them multiple times, offering $25,000 to eliminate his wife. The jury's decision to acquit Blake on March 16, 2005, made the case even wilder. After 9 days of deliberation, they found the evidence flimsy, citing the unreliability of the prosecution's key witnesses and the lack of definitive forensic evidence. But here's the infuriating part: the civil trial told a completely different story. With a lower burden of proof, Blake was found liable for Bakley's wrongful death and ordered to pay $30 million, later reduced to $15 million. The same evidence that couldn't convict him criminally was enough to bankrupt him civilly. Blake's isolation after the trial was telling.
Today, the walls of Blake's home are covered with his own bizarre handwritten scrawls. One says it's a sin not to dream. Others say no friends, no family, no wife, no kids, none.
I'm compulsively creative. You can see this crazy house that I live in because I can't stand for two pieces of furniture to match.
The aftermath was equally disturbing. Blake's bankruptcy in 2006 meant that Bakley's children never received the full compensation ordered by the court. Blake maintained his innocence until his death in 2023, leaving behind a legacy forever tainted by suspicion and unanswered questions about whether justice was truly served. Gucci Mane. The trap music scene has always been raw and unfiltered, but on May 10, 2005, rising rapper Gucci Mane found himself in a situation that would test the very limits of self-defense claims. Broderick Delantic Davis, known professionally as Gucci Mane, was visiting a female friend when he was attacked by 5 men, including Henry Lee Clark III, known as Pookie Locke. Years later, Gucci Mane would speak candidly about the incident.
Even with the murder, even though it was self-defense, do you ever think about that? Do you think like maybe I could have handled that different, especially when you did like the diss record?
He needed to be in the ground.
His justification was chilling.
Put his ass where he supposed to be. He tried me.
But when pressed about self-defense, his response was straightforward.
Nah, that's the truth, man.
Yeah.
You know, if somebody comes to you, try to kill you, you know, and self-defense. So if somebody try to kill you, you know, you gotta do what you gotta do.
You gotta do, absolutely.
What happened next shocked the hip-hop community and raised serious questions about justice in cases involving young black men. According to Gucci Mane's account, the attackers pistol-whipped him and threatened his life while wearing dark clothing, with at least one armed. In the chaos that followed, Gucci Mane retrieved a firearm and fired shots as the group retreated, fatally wounding Clark. During a 2005 interview, the seriousness of the charges was made clear.
The man got some, are they murder charges or attempted murder charges?
Murder charges.
Murder charges, straight up. And
here's what makes this case so controversial. The charges were dropped on January 17, 2006, due to insufficient evidence. The DeKalb County District Attorney's Office lacked physical evidence connecting Gucci Mane to the crime, and his self-defense claim was supported by witness testimony and the circumstances of the attack. Gucci Mane believed the attack was orchestrated.
Yeah, I think it was set up.
Do you have any, like, you know, indications on who it might be? Have you heard anything on the streets? Just whatever you feel in your own heart?
Well, you know what I'm saying? Like I say, ain't too many people got the motive to do some shit like that. I just like a detective, learn, you know what I'm saying, look at the motive, who has motive to do it. And this fuck nigga, the only nigga has motive.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Okay.
Straight up.
So
The case took on a life of its own in the hip-hop community, becoming entangled in a bitter feud between Gucci Mane and fellow rapper Young Jeezy. The shocking reality is that this incident became fodder for rap beef and street credibility, rather than being treated as the serious legal matter it was. But the victim's family saw things differently. Pookie Lock's son had harsh words about Gucci Mane's perceived toughness.
Get what, he accidentally killed my dad, man. That man was shooting and the black man was shooting with their eyes closed, his soft ass. And I meant that.
DaBaby. November 5th, 2018 started as a routine shopping trip for rising rapper DaBaby, but it ended in tragedy that would forever change how we view self-defense laws in America. Jonathan Kirk, known professionally as DaBaby, was shopping at a Walmart in Huntersville, North Carolina, with his partner and their 2 young children when he encountered 19-year-old Jalen Craig. DaBaby's own explanation of the incident reveals how he framed the situation.
I just come out and show y'all how I was in there with my 1-year-old daughter, my 5-year-old little nigga, my baby mama, on some family shit. And he nigga walked up on me, tried me, whipped out on my whole family. A lot of you niggas owe me an apology, dog.
But here's the shocking part that changes everything. Security footage obtained by Rolling Stone in 2022 shows DaBaby as the initial aggressor, sucker-punching Douglas before the situation spiraled out of control. The video evidence contradicts DaBaby's narrative of being an innocent family man defending his loved ones. What makes this case even more disturbing is how DaBaby has referenced the shooting in his music since then. In his hit song Rockstar, he raps about his daughter witnessing him kill a guy in front of her before the age of 2, seemingly bragging about the incident that took a young man's life. The case becomes a broader discussion about how society views these incidents. As one interviewer noted about DaBaby's situation,
"You see DaBaby kill someone at Walmart in self-defense?"
Yeah, gotta do what you gotta do.
Despite this evidence, DaBaby was protected by North Carolina's Stand Your Ground law, which allows deadly force if someone reasonably believes they're in imminent danger. The Mecklenburg County District Attorney's Office concluded they couldn't prove beyond a reasonable doubt that DaBaby didn't act in self-defense, leading to no charges for Craig's death. The infuriating part? DaBaby was only convicted of carrying a concealed weapon without a permit, receiving 12 months of unsupervised probation and a suspended 30-day jail sentence. A 9-year-old lost his life, and the legal consequences were essentially a slap on the wrist. There's also a telling perspective on how these situations are viewed.
Walmart, you know, you gotta have your gun when you go to Walmart.
Yo!
Straight up.
Right.
You gotta just keep that.
Right.
Target, it's a little easier run.
K-Flock. The drill rap scene in New York had found its newest star in K-Flock, but on December 16, 2021, Kevin Perez's rising career collided with the violent realities of street life when he was involved in the fatal shooting of 24-year-old Huascar Hernandez outside a Harlem barbershop. Legal experts explained the complexity of the case.
K-Flock is currently locked up, right?
Yep.
For murder.
Yep.
But it's somewhat of a complex situation, it seems, right? It's not cut and dry.
Well, K-Flock came on the scene like 2020. 2021, he's got some songs. He's buzzing. At the end of 2021 is when the cops say the shooting happened.
The defense strategy was sophisticated.
And what the defense attorneys have been saying really from the beginning, he's got, I think, El Chapo's lawyer, and this guy also represented Shadi. And he's a great lawyer. I've heard a lot of people say, oh, well, look what happened to El Chapo. Look what happened to Shadi. Right. Watch what might have happened to them if that lawyer wasn't there, okay? And at the end of the day, look, a criminal lawyer can only do so much.
A key element of the defense emerged.
Came onto the case, he said, hey, there was a tip called into the police. And the tip called into the police says that somebody else was the shooter. And it wasn't my guy. So you got K-Flock's lawyer saying that the cops have a tip that somebody else is the shooter.
The case took a shocking turn when it was moved to federal court in 2023. with K Flock facing racketeering charges as an alleged leader of the Sev Side or DOA gang. Fellow rapper Bobby Shmurda showed support for K Flock.
But you know, I'm wishing him the best right now, you know what I'm saying? And you know, for the alleged charges they pushing on him, you know what I'm saying? I'm wishing his family the best, I'm wishing the whole team the best and everything, you know what I'm saying? And I hope he beat them alleged charges, you know what I'm saying? Because he got a lot of shit a lot of future brightness he got.
The March 20, 2025 verdict was stunning. K Flock was acquitted of the murder charge while being convicted of racketeering conspiracy, attempted murder, and firearm offenses. The jury had essentially said that while K Flock was involved in criminal gang activity, this particular shooting was justified as self-defense. The case raises disturbing questions about how drill rap music is used as evidence in criminal trials. Snoop Dogg. August 25, 1993, was supposed to be just another day in Los Angeles, but it became the day that would test whether one of hip-hop's biggest stars could literally get away with murder. Calvin Broadus, better known as Snoop Dogg, and his bodyguard McKinley Lee were involved in the fatal shooting of Philip Woldemariam at Woodbine Park. Years later, Snoop would reflect on the terror of facing a murder charge.
You described that feeling to these young cats. It wasn't.
It wasn't nice. It wasn't.
We talking about murder was the case.
When you fighting for your life, when you fighting a murder case, and you're in the judicial system, first of all, the system designed to beat you anyway. So if you go in there, you know, with a 187, most likely you're gonna lose. So my heart was beating every day.
The impact of the case on his daily life was profound.
My heart was beating every day. I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know how to carry myself. I didn't know how to act because I wasn't never in a position like that. Normally when I went to court, I would just take the deal. You know what I'm saying? Because I didn't have money for a lawyer. I didn't have...
Yeah, that was me. I was there.
Right. So nigga didn't have none of that. So this is the first time I ever had a lawyer. I ever had somebody speak for me to where I couldn't say nothing. I couldn't do nothing. I had to let the lawyer speak and just sit in court and just be on my best behavior.
The financial investment in Snoop's defense was staggering.
Man, we spent about $10 million on that case.
Damn. Just to get you out. He spent $10 million cash.
At least, because the case went on for 3 years.
And y'all had the best lawyer you could get.
We had David Kenner, and then he brought in Johnny Cochran, and he brought in Donald Ray, and then they brought in another attorney. It was like I had like 5 or 6 attorneys on it.
The defense team's innovation was groundbreaking.
The video, like every level of the game, it was like, this was the first time that video reenactments was introduced in court. So we had to reenact what had actually happened through a video that my attorney was willing to found a way to put together, so it was like a reenactment like you see now when you watch those shows, the first 48 and all that shit. You see them we was the first ones to do that in court.
Final verdict was dramatic.
We, the jury in above entitled action, find the defendant, McKinley Lee, not guilty of the crime of murder in the first degree in violation of Penal Code Section 187, a felony is charged in count 1 of the information. Dated February 13, 1996, Charles B. Foster, foreperson.
All right, wait a second. There will be no outbursts in this courtroom.
And for Snoop himself,
we, the jury in above entitled action, find the defendant, Calvin Broderick, not guilty of the crime of murder in the first degree in violation of Penal Code Section 187, a felony, as charged in count 1 of the indictment. Dated February 13, 1996, Charles B. Foster, foreperson.
What makes this case so infuriating is how Snoop Dogg capitalized on the trial for his career. His 1,994 short film and soundtrack, Murder Was the Case, directly exploited the trial's notoriety, turning a young man's death into entertainment and profit. The most disturbing aspect might be the complete absence of consequences. Unlike other high-profile cases, no civil lawsuit was filed against Snoop Dogg or Lee, possibly due to Woldemariam's gang affiliation or his family's lack of resources to pursue justice. Ted Kennedy. The Kennedy name has always carried weight in American politics, but on the night of July 18-19, 1969, that weight became a shield that may have protected Ted Kennedy from facing justice for one of the most controversial incidents in political history, the death of Mary Jo Kopechne at Chappaquiddick. The initial news reports captured the gravity of the situation.
At midnight last Friday, Senator Edward M. Kennedy drove a car off a narrow bridge and into a pond on Martha's Vineyard, Massachusetts. A young woman in the car with him was drowned. Kennedy survived but failed to report the accident until 10 hours later.
The political implications were immediate.
Before the young blonde was killed, many politicians, including Republicans, looked on Senator Kennedy as a shoo-in for the Democratic presidential nomination against President Nixon's bid for re-election in 1972, or perhaps 4 years later. Now these same politicians privately are asking a lot of questions, and there's no doubt that the tragedy has injured Senator Kennedy politically.
Kennedy's own televised explanation revealed the disturbing timeline.
This morning I entered a plea of guilty to the charge of leaving the scene of an accident. Prior to my appearance in court, it would have been proper for me to comment on these matters. But tonight I am free to tell you what happened and to say what it means to me.
His account of the party and departure was carefully crafted.
On Chappaquiddick Island, off Martha's Vineyard, I attended on Friday evening, July 18th, a cookout I had encouraged and helped sponsor for a devoted group of Kennedy campaign secretaries. When I left the party around 11:15 p.m., I was accompanied by one of these girls, Miss Mary Jo Kopechne.
Kennedy's description of the accident was dramatic.
I remember thinking as the cold water rushed in around my head that I was for certain drowning. Then water entered my lungs and I actually felt the sensation of drowning. But somehow I struggled to the surface alive. I made immediate and repeated efforts to save Mary Jo by diving into the strong and murky current.
But the most outrageous part was his admission about the delay.
I regard as indefensible the fact that I did not report the accident to the police immediately.
Kennedy's explanation for his actions afterward revealed the calculating nature of his response.
They were reflected in the various inexplicable, inconsistent, and inconclusive things I said and did, including such questions as whether the girl might still be alive somewhere out of that immediate area, whether some awful curse did actually hang over all the Kennedys, whether there was some justifiable reason for me to doubt what had happened and to delay my report.
The political maneuvering was transparent.
And my admission of guilt this morning raises the question in my mind of whether my standing among the people of my state has been so impaired that I should resign my seat in the United States Senate.
The legal consequences were a joke. Kennedy pleaded guilty to leaving the scene of an accident and received a 2-month suspended sentence. That's it. A woman died, and one of the most powerful politicians in America got probation. Click on one of the cards on your screen to see more videos like this.